beautiful. This is Sarah. And in my business, I have a few business besties, and Leslie Chen is certainly one of those. I remember Leslie, I don't know if I told you this story. I was on my honeymoon with Ben, and I was like, it's so weird not talking to Leslie every day.
I totally get it. And I was definitely lonely during your honeymoon.
Well, it's funny because, you talk about food obsession and toxic relationships with food, and I focus on toxic relationships with people, but really both of that translates to a toxic relationship with ourselves, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we didn't realize there's so much overlap between the problems and solutions that we're focusing on until we talked like when? 2 months ago?
Yep. Yeah. And one of the biggest things, if you guys have followed me, I talk about something called smart girl syndrome. And it was interesting. The more I got to know about Leslie's work, she uses this fabulous example about eating. And she says, you don't have to think about breathing, or you don't have to think about, is my right step or my left foot going to take the step, like my right foot or my left foot, right? It's intuitive, right? And being toxic person proof is the same way. It's intuitive. It's listening to your nervous system sending you signals. But high achievers often get into their heads and make it harder on themselves, right, Leslie?
It's always the case. Like when I'm working, let's say if they have received some kind of advanced degree, like PhDs, you already know immediately that this girl has been overworking on this problem for many, many years without even realizing it. It's about, how do I solve the problem? Because you're a problem solver. You want to make sure that you're on top of everything. You want to make sure that you are a good project manager, right? On this particular problem solutions. But the problem is that we both know, Sarah and I both know, that it's not really about the solution. It's not even about, the solution is not really about hardworking. The solution is not about you getting on top of everything, trying to control everything, including the metrics, the rules. It's actually about allowing your instincts and internal algorithm to work so that you're going to have the right behavior, right decision, and right reaction, right experience automatically. Sarah, go ahead. Talk about it.
I love your algorithm example, right? Because we can kind of get into these upgrades. Like if our phone, there's a new system sent to our phone, we want it to work, right? We want it to do what we need it to do. We want our bodies to do what we need to do in telling us, one, what we need to eat, and two, is this a good person? Is this a safe person?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if our algorithm is off and we're too much in our heads, or we're overthinking, or we're trying to ignore the body signals and listen to someone else telling us what to do, things go awry.
The problem is that a lot of people tell you that you have to build the right habits, right? Do the right things. And to be honest, Sarah and I have talked about it, and we both know that the term building the right habits is overrated. It's way overrated. It's not even practical in the sense that people don't realize a lot of time, even your habits, you have no control over it, because it's your psychological, emotional, neurological, and biological and physical patterns that is going to determine what kind of habit you're going to naturally fall for. And willpower in this situation is powerless. It's not a willpower game. And Sarah, do you want to go ahead and give example in your niche? You know what we're talking about?
Well, absolutely. I think about how often people get obsessed over studying narcissism, right? And they get into that smart girl syndrome. And it's just like, okay, if I find everything there is to know about this subject, then I won't call the old boyfriend, or I won't go out with the wrong guy, or I won't go off on my toxic boss, or I won't be frustrated with my toxic aunt, right? Like they think it's an information problem. And I think it's the same way with dieting too, right?
Well, yes, absolutely. The best example I can give is when I say that it's about your neurological, your emotional, psychological patterns, or hormonal patterns. I'll give you a very specific examples. For instance, if you're struggling with chronic inflammation, which a majority of the overweight and obese people are struggling with, what's going to happen is that your leptin and insulin, one is your hunger control hormone, the other is your sugar craving hormone. They're going to be impaired, which means that you're going to be automatically wanting to overeat and wanting to eat a lot of sugar without even realizing, what is pushing you. Because in your head, you're going to think that it is me not following rules and it's me not having disciplines or willpower. But actually, no, because you can't fight your biology. If you're biologically programmed or wired to do this all over, like over and over again, you can't really overcome it. So that's what we were talking about. It's much less about building the right habit, doing the right thing, overcoming the problem, fighting the problem. It's not about fighting the problem. It's about outgrowing the problems. Because when your hormones are neatly working effectively, just as it should, like part of their instincts are how the instincts are built, right? From the very beginning, you should not be facing the extra cravings. You should not be facing the overeating problem, not knowing how to eat. Because that's also one thing that we hear a lot. I don't even know how to talk to people. I don't even know how to eat. But if these things are working for you, you should not be thinking about these problems. That's what we're talking about when we say it's an algorithm issue. It's not a hardworking issue.
And I always love your language around outgrowing the problem. When we're 2 or 3, I know you've got a young daughter. My kids are a little bit older, but when kids are young and it's like, I want sugar, give me sugar, or I want attention, give me attention, and it's kind of this like, with the toxic relationships, I feel like it's almost like this tugging on someone's skirt, like pay attention to me, or love me, right? And we want to outgrow that. We want to be loved. We want to eat well. We want to love ourselves, but we want to outgrow an obsession.
Yeah.
Right? That is more like toddler life.
You want to do it in a way that's peaceful. It's just like walking past a stage. Like my 2-year-old, there was a period when she was obsessed with sucking her fingers. But when we're trying to train kids out of that kind of habit, it's not like you can do discipline, but you know that discipline never works because they're just going to do whatever. And for me, I just make sure that I'm going with that and making sure that she's not distracted, but we kind of have enough activities to distract her from that, and she forgets it. That's kind of like the experience that when we're helping our clients move past the toxic relationships with another human being and with food and their own bodies. It's not about I have to fight it. You actually just walk past that stage. And it's a cruise.
And I want to say that's really interesting because the way Natalie stopped sucking her thumb was she broke her arm, right? So she was playing at a neighbor's house and actually broke her arm. And that's when she stopped sucking her thumb because, she had the cast on and whatnot. And, I think that's such a good lesson for us, whether it's a food obsession, toxic person situation. It's like, we don't want to wait till something in our life breaks to solve the problem, right? We don't want to wait till it gets so bad that there's, hospital visits and broken bones and all that kind of stuff. It did solve the problem. She did. I mean, we obviously did not break her arm to solve the
cost is way too high. The cost is way too high sometimes.
The cost is way too high. Cost is way too high.
Yeah.
Cost is way too high. So I know we have some similarities and boundaries too.
Absolutely. So let me talk through it because it's a very interesting idea. A lot of people are talking about let's set the right boundaries so that we're going to avoid these problems, right? So in your industry, toxic relationship with people, we're talking about setting a lot of rules. I think once you mentioned to me that one of the biggest questions people always have for you on the phone is what? Sarah, give me a list of the rules I follow so that I'm not gonna do the wrong thing. Yeah. And for me, it's Leslie, what should I eat? Give me a recipe, give me a meal plan, give me a rule, give me a technique it's not about that. When people think that boundary is a clear idea about what I should do and what I should not do, they're doing them a huge disfavor because what they're doing is that the more they follow rules set by the other people, the more they're losing their own strength. And along the way, they get more and more confused and more exhausted, tired, demotivated. And do you think that's going to lead them to failure or to victories, right? Mostly failures.
Devastating for high performers, right? I mean, that's why we started with the smart girl syndrome, because if you were using all your mental energy to not pick up the donut and not pick up the phone to call someone, the toxic person, that is a lot of mental energy that you're not spending on building your dreams, getting a promotion, getting a raise, right? Like, and
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because this is something I didn't know when I first got into this industry. I've spoken to thousands and thousands of women nowadays, like so far, about this particular issue of weight, about their food obsession, their food addiction, obsessive relationship with food, etc. So one of the things that I heard all over, and I have statistics about it right now, is that on average, women spend 2 to 4 hours either thinking about it or researching about it or trying to execute rules around food. It's 2 to 4 hours per day on average. Sometimes they're even doing without realizing they're doing it. Because I ask them the question when they talk to me, I'm like, how much time are you spending on it per day? And they're like, oh my gosh, counting everything in, excluding just eating food, because eating food is normal meals, right? But excluding that, probably 2 to 3 hours, or even more, 3 to 4 hours, because they're constantly researching about the next rule. And what is it going to do to them? They are losing time, wasting time. They're not going to go anywhere, which is going to make them even more devastated, because you can't stand being stuck and settling. That's a problem. In my industry, one of the things I can give you an example just to illustrate the idea furthermore is that there are people that, because they follow the rules, right? So they're going to ignore their natural senses, their natural instincts. We actually do have the natural instincts body on a physical level, also in the psychological level, to make sure that our body is not going to retain and attract fat, to make sure that you're in shape. But the more that you follow the calorie rules, the metrics, the more you're suppressing it, because you're so overly focused on complying to the rules and you lose your own instinct. That's why you don't know how to eat, essentially. In your industry, Sarah, is there also a good example that illustrates the same problem?
It's really just that obsession over narcissism and thinking they have an information problem, rather than a transformation problem. And you and I both know there are some people who they're not experts in narcissism. They haven't read 500 books on narcissism, but there's an energy about them that says, don't mess with them. Right? Like we can't take advantage of that person. You know, they are strong in their industry. You know, it's one of the things I call a personal brand, right? So they're personal.
Being toxic proof.
Toxic person.
I love that term. Being toxic proof.
Yes. And so when you are just your essence, your energy, your aura is just, it's not about obsessively studying narcissism. Right? Or obsessively studying diets. It's like, and Leslie, when I was when I was going through my divorce, I would eat half a carton to a carton of ice cream a day with Nutella on it. Like melt Nutella in the microwave.
I can sense the level of the pain there.
It was just a mess, right? And it was like the only part of my day that wasn't depressing, but I mean, it was just, my body was a wreck. I mean, it was terrible. And so I know exactly what you're talking about, that for my own personal self, both in putting up with toxic people and then not putting up with toxic people. And then, thinking, I remember I used to work out and thinking, okay, I can't wait till I finish my workout so I can get some ice cream. That is miserable. I've not lived that way in years, but that is a miserable way to live, to obsess over the biggest problem in your life, whether it's food or a toxic person.
Right. And the worst part is that during the process, you lose your own strengths. You don't even remember that you have the strengths. So the boundary, back to the concept of boundary, is not really about following rules as to what you should do, what you should not do. It's actually about being very clear about what my strengths are, and then focus on it, strengthen it even more, amplify it, so that you're strong enough that the weaknesses when it comes to food and when it comes to like people, it becomes negligible to you. That's how you kind of promote your personal brand. You talk a lot about personal brand, right? And for me, my situation is that you connect to your core senses, which is supposed to be your key strength. And your senses are going to make sure that you're not triggered by the wrong cravings, so that you don't even detect the cravings. You're not even wanting to overeat because your senses are filtering out that inner desire so that you don't struggle at all. Right? So that is the boundary. Yeah.
And people who are looking for a solution, like a true solution, not looking for busy work on dieting or busy work on toxic relationships, or, I think for some people, dieting has become a hobby. Toxic relationships have become a hobby. It's a very bad hobby, in my opinion. Like, a hobby should make you happy, not hold you back.
It's a thing. Like, the thing is, why this is so important to actually have a working solution is that if you're stuck in the wrong solutions to waste too much time on it, you actually get accustomed to the problem, to actually live in the problem, because now it's becoming your everyday pattern. And we're animals of patterns. We're animals of habit. And when you have habitual thinking that I'm doing this and that and that, it's like a programming that is running you. So yes, intellectually, you know that I have to fix a problem. I'm so committed to fixing the problem. But eventually, since you've been living in that problem for so many years, you're actually more used to wanting to fix the problem instead of fixing it. And that's the worst way that you settle. But it happens so much. We see that.
Absolutely. And that goes again to the smart girl syndrome stuff, right? And in your industry, I think it would be something like, I want to know everything there's a difference in wanting to know everything there is to know about dieting and then wanting to feel good when you put on a pair of jeans. Like, those are what I would call two different problems to solve, right?
Yeah.
And in my industry, it's like, okay, I want to know everything there is to know about narcissism, or I want to have healthy relationships. Like, two different problems to solve.
Exactly. So that's why you're seeing people researching on narcissists all the time, but they still do not have the power and the strength and the ability to actually cope with them or deal with them.
And a lot of it is, I think, they try to do it on their own. I was listening to a podcast today, a trauma-informed podcast, and she said something like, hey, you can try to, this sense of like, I don't need to ask for help, kind of do it yourself. And Leslie, you and I both know a lot of coaches. Anyone, I don't know, I cannot name one person who has truly done something, pulled off a miracle on their own. And that is just like, that is like a humble place and a communal place, and we all need each other. It's a healthy place. It's like, okay, what do I want? I want to stop the food obsession. I want to have healthy relationships. I want to have a healthy relationship with food. I want to stop my obsession with my ex-boyfriend, right? Whatever it is.
Right.
And I don't see people doing it on their own. I just don't.
You can't, because, well, you and I also talked about it a while ago. Just let's talk about, since when you just talked about goals, right? Well, the outcome that you want to accomplish. In my industry, it's very obvious. It's a great example. Thank you for bringing up. But in my industry, it's always the case that people, they try to, we're all smart. I'm not, denying that at all, right? You're a smart lady. You are a high achiever. You want to do things on your own. You think you're on top of it. But the problem is that the more information you try to absorb, given all the misinformation on the market, you're always very confused and you do not get the real results. And even when you're following some solutions, to be honest, there's one important distinction I want to share. And I'm pretty sure you can add to that too, which is that when you're following a so-called solution, you really have to be focused and be really aware as to where it is leading you. Because like in my industry, this problem I solve, being a dieter and being a holistically healthy and well person and lean person, these two are completely different species. Because because you think differently, they think differently, even though they're both in, you know, a 130 pound body. They think differently. They're wired differently. They have different emotional anchors when it comes to, especially when it comes to their body and personal image and, you know, the confidences. They spend their times differently. They feel differently about themselves. Their world is projectedly completely different. So they're living on two different dimensions. So when you're following, let's say, a solution or treatment or program, you really have to think about where this thing is leading me. Is it gonna make me a dieter because, or better dieter? Because if that's the case, you're actually going south from where exactly you wanna go. You wanna go north, which is, right, a holistically healthy and lean and happy person. You have to think about whether it's leading you. Is it making you follow all the rules and make you feel productive, which is actually a gratuity, that mental gratuity for people who are high achievers, because we want to see results. We want to get busy, right? So we're going to have a lot of short-term results by getting very busy. But the thing is that you're not getting to the real outcome. You have to be really sensitive about where this is leading you. Sarah, what's your words about it? What's your opinion about it?
So I think when you tell people that you do toxic relationship recovery, right? People assume I listen to women bash their husbands all the time or bash their like exes all the time. That's kind of the assumption. I was like, actually, we hardly ever talk about their exes. Like that's kind of part of the program. If you just like with food obsession, if I got on the phone about a toxic person recovery and all they wanted to talk about was their toxic person, well, that's not recovering anything.
No, it's not. It's actually strengthening the problem because I'm more focused and obsessed with it.
Yes, I want them to talk about healthy relationships and their reconnection with their kids and how they handled something differently and how they asked their boss for a raise and how they handled something at work and how they're sleeping better. Like these are the conversations when you talk about where's the solution leading you. That's how I know they're going in the right direction. If we keep swinging back to obsession with the ex, it's like, you know,
it goes back to the previous point we just touched on, which is about connecting to amplifying your strengths instead of focusing on the, you know, on the weakness.
Absolutely. Okay, Leslie, I know that you are a miracle worker in this field. And you have a really interesting spin on. I know my thing's toxic person proof, but tell people a little bit about the intuitive eating, because I just think it's so well done.
Well, intuitive eating is not about following rules. That's why I named my core program the Lean Instinct Formula. Like I just said, when you're setting your algorithm right, which means that psychologically and emotionally and physically, you're doing everything right, even metabolically, because your body is doing things right. These things are non-issues. So you don't need to follow 1,000 rules or 100 rules at the same time or fighting 100 different triggers at the same time, because you basically mute those problems. You mute it. You don't, which means that your brain and your body is functioning on a completely different level, right? Which makes you overlook it. All right. So that's why it's so important actually to activate your instinct so that you don't need to work against your body. You don't need to be at war with yourself, because once the body works for you, your eating, your fitness results, they're just going to be automatically adjust. It's really a cruise, like I just said. So that's why it's instinct. Yeah.
You have a phrase and it's like, you're not supposed to be on a diet, your body is, or you're not supposed to worry about what to eat or how to lose weight. It's your body's job to lose weight.
It's your body's job. Your body really does 90% of the things. I like to say, again, let's tie it into the context here. We're talking about the specific challenges that a lot of the problem solvers, right? They think of themselves, people think of them as we're smart. We are smart. We are really good problem solvers. But the thing is that when you try to micromanage, you actually disrupt so many things at the same time. Like, you just imagine yourself like a CEO or leader of the company. Do you lead the firm on a big directional and a strategic level, or do you get into like the function of each team, micromanaging people? That's just going to screw up the entire corporate culture and operations and the procedures, because they already have the SOP, the standard the standard process over there, and all you're doing is to disrupt it. In relationship building and also in eating and even health, weight loss is the same thing. So you do 10%, which is leading.
So people talk about beating themselves up over what they eat, beating themselves up over relationships. And I'm always amazed. You and I have talked a lot about strength-based strategies, right? And I believe so much in strength-based healing, which very much goes back to the CEO example, right? Because it's like, okay, has anyone ever hired you over your weaknesses? Like they hired you for your weaknesses. I doubt it.
I heard that analogy that you made, I think a few months ago, and I really love it, right? If you just focus on your weaknesses, it's all this, imagine, I'll let you say it as a
no, that's great. But that's what I see. And, you know, when you talk about women losing 2 or 3 hours a day in these problems, have you seen those TV shows where they're trying to solve a crime? So they have all these like pictures out. There's like a whole wall of all these crazy pictures, like a crime thing. And I think that's what a lot of people's minds look like, is this whole wall of like, maybe I'll do this diet, or maybe I'll read this book, or maybe I'll talk to this guy, or maybe I'll try this dating site, or maybe I'll eat this, right? It's this, whatever it is this whole like scramble of their head. And especially if you have a lot of weaknesses on that wall, that you just keep staring at and obsessing over and obsessing over.
Because
and
that's the only thing you see about yourself.
Yes. And it doesn't mean you don't fix the weaknesses. We absolutely want to help you have healthy relationships and a healthy relationship with food and fit in the clothes you want and have the relationships you want. Absolutely. We're just saying a lot of the strategies out there are not working.
No, it's not.
Like, Leslie?
Something I want to say here. It's very important because we just talked about patterns. We just talked about, instincts, the algorithm, right? How you're actually wired on multiple different levels, actually determine your decision, your behavior, and your, let's say, obsession or focus, right?
Absolutely.
And experience. So neurologically speaking, the only way to interrupt your pattern, your existing pattern, is through experience, a new experience that is very much emotionally charged. Right? The more emotionally charged it is, right, the greater change it has the power to trigger in you. So you are a function of your patterns. Okay, whether it is about your relationship or it's about your body, a relationship with food, you're a function of your patterns. The only way to break the pattern is through a completely different and opposite and contrasting experience. Okay, it's not information. That's why you are spending so many hours a week to absorb the information and also trying to implement the tips, but you're not getting there because fundamentally these are not strong enough to help you break your pattern. So let me just throw it in here because it's very important for our audience to hear. If you are struggling with a toxic relationship, okay, whether it is a relationship with your partner or a relationship with your parents or maybe spouse or maybe friends or coworker, boss, and that's giving you trauma and a lot of anxiety, I'm not going to lie here. Sarah Ramsey is the person you must talk to because I've known her for so many years now. Sarah, when did we first met each other?
It's been at least half a decade. I think it may be longer than
2017,
that.
2017, yes. I've seen her improve and refine her program to deliver people the real results. So if you are wasting time trying to figure things out yourself, you're wasting your life. Talk to Sarah and see how she's going to change your life. Now, if you're struggling with an obsessive relationship with food, toxic relationship food obsession, weight problems, or problematic weight pattern, come to talk to me because I'm going to show you in just about 45 to 60 minutes in terms of how everything can be changed and rewired, and you don't have to work hard for it. I know it sounds too good to be true, but I'm not joking with you. Okay?
It's not. And I've seen Leslie for the last, and just I will never forget hearing her say, it's not your job to lose weight, it's your body's job to lose weight. And just, I mean, some of those phrases that just stand out, and just like she's like, I just love the toxic person proof and your personal branding. There are some people in this industry that are taking a different strategy, and they're getting the results because of that different strategy. And life is short.
Right.
Life is short to feel overweight. Life is short to be in miserable relationships, right?
It's short to live just a fraction of who you really are. This is really how I thought about myself, living a fraction of who I was when I was 50 pounds heavier than I was supposed to be, which was 16 years ago. But anyways, what can we offer, Sarah? I'll let you get into it.
Yeah, we'll definitely put in the comment section. It's on LinkedIn, this is on YouTube, this is on Facebook, this is on a bunch of places. And we'll drop the contact info to get a hold of Leslie or I. Again, 2 or 3 hours back a day. I know if you're studying diet or studying narcissism, I know that it's taking up that much of your mental energy. People say, oh, why am I stressed out? Why do I not have time? It's interesting. Leslie, we've been friends for a long time, and we're not using that language of when we don't have time.
No.
Right. And it's been, we've had conversations for years. We've had babies, we've raised kids, I've written books, you've relaunched a whole move across the country, right? I mean, it's like, this is like major time consuming things, but if you have that space left over in your head, then you can make things happen in your life.
Yeah. You need to save the mental energy, also your physical power, right? The confidence, your mental power for things that you need to pursue in your life. Maybe it's your next promotion. Maybe it's your next business empire, right? Wasting time counting calories or earning a PhD in narcissism is not going to help your life. It's not going to help people around you. So yes, we invite you to come over to talk to us, connect with us. And with full authenticity and certainty, we're going to show you how you can get out of these problems that has been probably troubling you for decades.
For decades, yes. Yes, thank you so much, Leslie. Give me your website one more time and I'll give them mine.
Okay, so Sarah's website, I can definitely just stay out with my eyes closed. It's www.sarah, which is SARAHK, Ramsey, which is RAMSEY.com. That's your website, right?
That's our website. And yours is RiseLean, RISELEAN.com, correct?
That's right.
See, we really do know each other now. Guys, thank you for joining us. Thank you for, when we talked about this, the holidays are tough, relationships, food, all that kind of stuff. And we just do want people to know there's a better way. It's hard to watch people struggle when there is a solution. So check out our websites and live your best life. And the best way, I saw this quote and I loved it. The best way to make 2023 your best year ever is to start in 2022.
Absolutely.
Right? Start now to make next year better. So have a great day.
Bye-bye.